Hey guys, bonus time. So I got a couple of emails about mini IRACs, and they were asking me what they were. So this is something I usually would cover a bit later in the semester, but given I'm so late in getting things up, I figured I'd give you a bonus. We'll go over it in more detail and have exercises later in the semester, but uh, I will give you a flavor for what mini IRACs are right now. Also, just like with the other half of the lecture today, I'm going to put the um, full slides up on Blackboard. That way you can read through the example. I won't take your time to do it here. And with that, we're off. So just as a reminder, when we're talking about mini IRACs, we're talking about issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. And of course, write a full analysis. In other words, which fact from the question or hypothetical relates to which element. Offer your understanding of the fact to link it to the rule. And then finally, link to the language of the rule. And it's that key step of linking the fact through your understanding to the rule element that establishes your understanding of the law. Just as a recap. Of course, the conclusion provides the answer to your issue statement. Be sure the conclusion addresses the call of the question. That's just something to keep in mind. A reminder I'd heard from a couple of different mentors. If you go back to the question after you finish your essay, there should be an alignment there. Make sure there is. And in fact, don't wait till you're done with your essay. Check for that alignment early on. Okay. Mini IRACs and their converse, umbrella IRACs, are very common. You're probably already doing it now. I don't know why "the" is in a font so much larger than the rest of the words on the slide. But hey, everybody has challenges. That's ours tonight. So, for any particular exam question, and not even just issue spotting questions, but anyone, even if there's a single issue, you will likely have more than one IRAC in your answer. And that is because you're going to IRAC each rule component that is amenable to being IRACed. Okay, here's an example of an umbrella IRAC and mini IRACs thereunder, to use a patent term. Obviously, this is the umbrella IRAC. Looky, there's a blue umbrella. Okay. Imagine this is a question about battery. The overall issue is whether the plaintiff has a cause of action for battery against the defendant. The rule for battery is the overall umbrella rule in this example. So it would be someone who intentionally committed an act with the intent of causing harmful or offensive contact, and that harmful or offensive contact, in fact, did occur. That's the rule for battery, as I was taught. And then you have to go through. And if you think about each element of that rule, you could break it down into its own mini IRAC. By this I mean, imagine the first component, component 1, is intent. The issue you have to resolve is whether the alleged tortfeasor had the intent to commit the tort. The rule is, boom, you provide the definition from the restatement third for Professor Kravitz of intent. You look at the facts to see if there's any that support a conclusion one way or the other. You apply the rule to the facts in an analytical framework like we've discussed before, and you reach a conclusion about whether or not there's intent. you move on from there. Even if you find no intent, you still in an essay talk about the other elements, particularly on first year exams, because it fully demonstrates the breadth of your knowledge and understanding about the rule. So if you do the same thing that I just described for intent for the other elements of the tort or of contract, whatever it may be, then you'll have a series of mini IRACs under the umbrella rule. That's all it means. That for each component of a rule, you conduct an IRAC-style analysis to determine whether or not it is satisfied. This lines up completely with everything we've talked about. It just treats the components of a rule as we have broader issues previously. What this does, as you can imagine, is it creates a really favorable structure for a reader, a professor, to grade your exam. They see exactly what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're doing it, and that makes it easy to grade. An easy to grade exam makes a happy grader. Happy graders are hopefully easier graders. So here's a good way of doing it. Oh, and then of course you reach an umbrella conclusion. The conclusion to the first issue, the large issue, will an action in battery lie, for example, you have to determine the answer to that. Not just the components, of course, but the overall conclusion you must reach as well. So here is what would be an in-class exercise. As I mentioned, I'm going to cut it short tonight. You will have the slides that explain everything, explain this in greater detail. I won't say everything, but it does explain this question in greater detail. You can look at that and read through it at your leisure. If you have questions, of course, email me and I can go through it with you. Okay, you read the fact pattern in your own time. Again, the slides will be up. But it's a contract formation question, in short, which gives me a chance to provide you another example. The umbrella, thank you, Rihanna. Ella. The umbrella rule is that a contract requires an offer, acceptance, and consideration. We know that. So you will have many IRACs for offer. Was there an offer? What is an offer? What does the restatement define as the offer? How do you determine whether or not an offer is there and you reach a conclusion about the offer? You just do an IRAC on the offer. Similarly, an IRAC on the acceptance. Finally, an IRAC, if necessary, on the consideration. Sometimes, you don't have to get into a great deal of detail. Money was exchanged for goods or services. That's consideration in anybody's book. So you can, don't say it that way, but you can make as not as detailed as an argument there. But you see how you'll have many IRACs for each of these elements. And then you go back to the overall umbrella issue was whether or not a contract was formed. That's your umbrella conclusion. That'll be based on the analysis you've done for each of those subcomponents, offer, acceptance, consideration.